morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another excellent show for you today. How are you doing this morning, Jessica?
You know, it's a good day in DC.
Yeah, it was a little cool on my daily scoot into the studio. I almost needed a sweater.
I forgot that you love scooters.
Just when the weather's nice out and when I want to take my life in my own hands, as I've only been hit by a car 5 times.
Yes, well, they opened up the side lane in DC. This is a very big deal, apparently.
Yeah, the bike lanes are starting to crowd out the drivers. So I have read the tea leaves, and I am now a non-car commuter to the office most days. All right, let's get to our first story. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito back in the news for being secretly recorded. That's right. Secret recordings of him have come to light, saying he agrees that America should return to a place of godliness. Take a listen.
People in this country who believe in God have got to keep fighting for that, to return our country to a place of godliness.
Oh, I agree with you.
Because we look at like the decline of our society, the decline of the nuclear family, and liberals, I just feel like, want to see that happen and proliferate.
He also discussed the difficulty of living in a world with ideological opposition, admitting that one side or the other is going to win.
I don't know that we can negotiate with the left in the way that needs to happen for the polarization to end. I think that it's a matter of winning.
I think you're probably right. I think one side or the other is going to win. There are differences on fundamental things that really can't be compromised. So it's not like we're going to split the difference.
The recording was reported by liberal journalist and filmmaker Laura Windsor. She went undercover at the Supreme Court Historical Society's annual dinner on June 3rd, where Alito made these comments. Windsor also taped Justice Alito's wife, Martha Ann, who has been embroiled in controversy over the past weeks for having 2 controversial flags hanging outside their residences.
I'm a huge fan of your husband, and everything that you're going through, I just want to tell you that,
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's not okay, though. It's not okay.
It's okay. It's okay because if they come back to me, I'll get them. I'm going to be liberated, and I'm going to get them.
What do you mean by
Oh, well,
they?
there's a 5-year defamation statute of limitations.
But I don't know what you mean by they, by them.
I want a Sacred Heart of Jesus flag because I have to look across the lagoon at the Pride flag for the next month.
Exactly.
MSNBC's Joy Reid spoke with Windsor about Alito's remarks. Let's hear some of that conversation.
One side or the other is going to win. It's not like we can split the difference. These are shocking comments. But before I get to how you internally reacted to them, I do want to just underscore that. How did you get into this event?
I was a dues-paying member. I bought a ticket.
Were you surprised? Because there's another part of your recording where you say, hey, I talked to you in 2022. But Alito kept talking. He seemed undeterred by the fact that you're someone he doesn't know personally, and he was willing to say a lot to you.
Well, so it was 2023, and I included both of the interactions there just so people could see that, I think some of the criticism is, oh, well, he was just agreeing with you or whatnot. But look at his answer in 2023. It was different. It was, no, we don't have a role. I don't know.
But some found all of this to be a big nothing burger. One ex-user writing, how is this a scoop? Warranting such hype seems to be done for engagement, followers, because, no offense, this is a massive nothing burger. Alito gave remarks at an event open to anyone, showing he's a conservative. Okay, it's bad when Project Veritas does this. It's bad when the Dems do it too. Republican communication strategist Greg Price wrote on X, nothing Justice Alito says in this clip is in any way damning. In fact, if you fast forward to 4:30, it specifically says the Supreme Court has a limited defined role when it comes to public policy. All it proves is that the guy is a Christian and understands his job. I similarly found this to be a whole lot of nothing, and I really disdain this tactic. I have criticized James O'Keefe, the Project Veritas guy, when he gets, secret recordings of a low-level employee at CNN or someone who worked for Pfizer, because the whole problem with, and look, sometimes it can be valuable. I won't say that there are no insights gleaned from these conversations, but the whole problem with this tactic is, if you're dishonest with someone, about your intentions and you're secretly recording them and you're not identifying yourself as a journalist, what they're telling you might be suspect. Like if you came up to me in a party and started saying like, Jonestown was a great idea, we should all drink Kool-Aid and commit ritualistic suicide, I might say, yeah, sure, sounds great, in order to like end this conversation as quickly as possible. That doesn't mean I think ritualistic suicide by Kool-Aid drinking is a good idea. That means I want to exit this conversation. And similarly, when this woman comes up and starts peppering these justices with questions, that seems to me it could very well be the case. Now, in terms of what he actually said, yeah, look, he is a Christian conservative. I think that is not a surprise to anyone. It's not a scandal that he admits it. He says the court has, he clearly wants Christian morality to win in the battle of ideas and public policy. He thinks the court has a limited role in promoting that. What's the story here?
I think, it's fair to say that some people, as I just did, respond as, I hear you, I'm following you, with a yeah, rather than affirmative, I agree with what you're saying. It's different to just be like, yeah. And then you give your real response and your real thoughts. And so should Supreme Court justices be precise when they're speaking, especially at events like this? Probably. They should have a little bit more scrutiny. I think what's interesting here is that his answer was different than it was a few years ago. She's obviously been on the story for a while. I find that to be fascinating. In a moment when there's a lot of political backing of this idea of Christians who want to see, as you said, in terms of morality, Christianity's way of viewing the world and making policy, they want that to win out. And I think so many people for so long played to this game. It's a lie, really, that the Supreme Court is apolitical.
Right, I agree with that.
It's less or more political now than it's ever been. And I think to assume that people who spend their lives making decisions, reading the Constitution, thinking about good governance, that they're apolitical people somehow. Right. That's insane. And so I do believe that it's possible Justice Alito is one of these people that are called, Christian evangelists, these people who want to see, Christianity create our laws. Is it a form of extremism, in my opinion? I think so. I think to believe in a religion so much, relying on such an old text that has been misinterpreted so many times over and mistranslated, I do think governing a country based on religion is a form of extremism, and we don't talk about Christianity that way in our country for some reason.
Well, I think forcing Christianity or any other religion on people, it would be extremist. I mean, our government framework, right, explicitly prohibits that. It was created by people who were very religious and Christian. Most of them, not all of them. Thomas Jefferson was not as religious as some of the other founders and was responsible for a lot of our founding documents. But they, very specifically, right off the bat in the First Amendment, create a framework for letting everyone practice religion as they like. Now, there are some Christians in the country who want religion to be more a part of public life, and we've had these very contentious battles about, can there be prayer in public schools? Does a Christian bakery have to make a cake for a gay wedding? There are areas where where there are conflicting free speech and non-discrimination laws conflict, and then what do you do? And does it matter if it's a private entity versus a government entity? All those kinds of things, and sometimes they get decided at the Supreme Court. And yes, is a justice with a Christian perspective going to necessarily weigh it differently? Sure, it's just not. That's not like some of the other justices do not have religious on the liberal side, don't have religious sensibilities at all, and they're right there. Operating based on that belief, and that's just not different. That's what he's saying. Like, you think one way or you think the other way, and one side's going to win. And they do reach, so many Supreme Court decisions. This isn't talked about or reported that much. Tons of Supreme Court decisions are 9-0. Like, while they are political people, they are clearly not as partisan as the Republican and Democratic members of Congress, because they do agree a lot on some pretty key free speech issues or civil liberties issues or things like that?
I think people are afraid we're going to see some 5-4 decisions that are more on the conservative side coming from the court that might fall on when you have people getting into public office, despite the freedom of religion being in our Constitution, one of the founding principles of our country. They might get into office and say, yeah, I'm going to make policy in the direction of my Christian beliefs, and these are just my moral beliefs, and they inform my policy. But at what point does enshrining your religion into law force it upon the people that you're governing? And if a case like that gets called into question, is brought into the court, and it reaches the highest court, and because of how we select only 9 Supreme Court justices, so yeah, maybe some people in the country are Christian, we have some Supreme Court justices who are Christian, but we only have 9, and they're not representative of the population. It's kind of determined based on who retires when whoever's president. And so that determines the makeup of the court, and now we have a Christian majority, but we don't have a majority of the country that wants to be governed on behalf of Christian beliefs. So someone like Alito could lead to a decision that affirms that that kind of policymaking is okay when it's not supposed to be.
Well, we're being a little bit abstract here about what it means to be governed according to Christian belief. Like what, I don't think even the very Christian members of the court want to like make Christianity the official religion of the United States, because that explicitly violates the Constitution. If we're talking about, does a religiously inclined business have the right to refuse creative, expressive services for something they don't accept on a religious basis, like a gay religious ceremony? Then I agree with that. I think that should be allowed under, I think, the First Amendment. You can't be obligated to serve someone in that capacity that you don't want to for that reason. I think the First Amendment protects you. So if that's what you mean by Christian framework, and I think like most people feel that way, that's not being governed by a Christian framework. That's just leaving people alone.
I think there's some Christians that look at the Bible to tell them what is right and wrong, and they read a passage about a man cannot lie with another man. They believe being gay is illegal. They believe gay marriage should not be legal, and they want to make laws about that, restricting people's freedoms. More things like that.
Right. Well, right. I mean, that's making the laws, and you gotta, I support gay marriage absolutely, but you gotta win the hearts and minds on that issue and get it, voted into. I mean, it got enshrined at the Supreme Court level. I don't think they're going back on that. I don't think there's enough justices to do that. I wouldn't want them to go back on that. Most of the country wouldn't. So I think it still has to follow public opinion to some degree.
I think abortion would be another example where the courts ruled in a direction that's the opposite of public opinion. So we've won over the hearts and minds, but the court has a lot of power.
I mean, they turned it back to the states, and if that's true, all the states can vote to keep it as legal as the residents of the states want to be, as the Republicans are finding out right now. So that's fine. I'm for democracy, Jessica. I'm just in favor of letting the people decide.
And I will continue to investigate whether or not Robby is for democracy. We've got Robby's radar coming up next.
That's true. Stay tuned.